Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Animal Communication Adventures. I'm Nicole. I'm an animal communicator from Australia. Today, we have a guest on our show. I'm going to flick you over to Courtney so she can explain who she is and then who our guest is, and then we'll get into it. So, Courtney, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for watching our show today. I am from an animal communicator from United States, from Pennsylvania, and we are very honored to have Janet Winters today as our special guest. Janet is an equestrian confidence riding coach. She has helped many people get over their fears of riding and get back in the saddle. Just some of you might be thinking, well, I don't have horses. Everything that Janet says, whether it's on here or if you have, other information like from one of her blog posts or she does videos herself, it all can relate to other animals. So you do not have to be a horse person to get anything out of this. She's very knowledgeable. So thank you, Janet. Thank you for coming.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here and talk about animal communication because actually Courtney and I have worked together a couple of times, several different times. Actually, she's actually communicated with my animals. I have two horses. I have an American saddlebred named Denver, and I've got a gypsy banner named Pirate. And Courtney came to our barn and she communicated with these animals. And I found out some interesting things. Fortunately, they did not tell anything bad about me because they were forewarned not to do that. But anyway, we found out some interesting information and it's really great. And Courtney also helps with my program, Canter to Confidence. As she mentioned, I am an equestrian confidence coach, and I help those who have lost confidence riding or even working around their horses, usually due to an injury or sometimes an illness that has, compromised their bodies, or sometimes just time away from out of the saddle, time away from horses, and they are just like they're feeling like they maybe rode as a child or something, and then they get back on and go, I'm not the rider I thought I was. So anyway, there's different reasons why that might happen. And we find it important that, for clients, for students to be able to delve into a little bit about what their horse is feeling about all of these things. Sometimes, like even when there's accidents and so on and so forth, there's a trust that's broken between the human, between the rider and the horse. And that's not easy to get back. And so what we try to do as part of our program is to include an animal communication session so that the horse has an opportunity to express what they're feeling about where things are with their rider right now. And we found that to be very, very helpful for both parties concerned. But today, I would like to talk a little bit about what it is that you are telling your horse or animal, as Courtney says, this translates to all animals, what you're telling them without you're not really knowing you're communicating something, but you are, because animals are very, very sensitive and they pick up on cues, on body language, how our bodies are performing, et cetera, without us even realizing that we're doing that. And there are actually, in Canter to Confidence, the three tenets. The first tenet is mindset reset, where we go in and we work on the mental aspects of fear and causing fear. And that has to do with deliberate versus default thinking. Default thinking is what we think all the time, whatever pops into our head, where deliberate thinking is what we choose to think. And so that area then moves into the mind-body reboot, where we discover and learn more about how our brain really controls our body. And it's the subconscious that controls like our organs, our heartbeat, our blood pressure, and all of those different bodily functions are controlled, the ones that we don't have to think about. We don't have to tell our heart to beat. It just does it because our subconscious is taking care of that for us. So that moves it into the next arena. And then the third being the animal trust and communication part. And so what we do is we focus on some of the things that we've learned, especially in recent years, about what we're communicating to our animals silently. And one of the most interesting things is that there has recently been a study done at the University of Sussex and Portsmouth in the United Kingdom. And what they did was they sought to prove that horses recognize human facial expressions. And, as animal people, I think we always sort of think to ourselves, like we have these ideas in our head. Oh, yeah, they know what we're thinking. Oh, yeah, exactly. And so we kind of know that in an innate way. But at the same time, it's always nice to have proof. Scientific proof always helps so that you can say, well, prove it. Okay, I will. And so they conducted these studies where they found that a horse will immediately process what kind of an expression a human has on their face. And they do this through their left eye. Why the left eye? Well, the left eye is because the left eye sends the information to the right brain. And the right brain is where emotion is registered with a horse, including fear, but other emotions as well, anger, etc. They have the same emotions, most of them, that we do. So that's kind of the process of how that happens. And so when you come face to face with your horse, they take a look at you and they register, okay, what are they thinking? If you're smiling, okay, well, that's pretty reassuring and you're cool and so forth. If you have a neutral expression, well, it's also okay. But if you have a frown or a scowl on your face, that is interpreted by them as something very, very negative. And horses being horses think it has something to do with them, or animals being animals. They think, okay, what did I do wrong? Okay, how is this going to affect me? Et cetera, et cetera. What's going to happen from here? Am I going to be punished? Whatever goes through their minds. And it could have absolutely nothing to do with them. Maybe you got cut off in traffic on the way to the barn, or you had an argument with your husband, or something happened that has got you to have a negative look on your face, but your horse doesn't know that. They think that it's something having to do with them. So you can see where it's important to be able to take a step back before you even approach the horse and be mindful of this and think to yourself, okay, what do I want to communicate to this horse when he or she lays eyes on me? And of course you want to approach it in the positive way, because that sets the stage for your experience with the animal going forward, whether you're riding or training or just hanging out. It doesn't really matter. You want it to be a pleasant experience for all parties concerned. And that's one small, simple step, an easy step that you can take to, like I said, set the stage for a positive experience.
I love that. Yeah. And sorry, Courtney, you go. I'm always talking over people.
I do too. I was gonna say that that study, how it was like the left eye, the right brain, like that's so interesting. And after you explained it, it made like a lot of sense. It's like, yeah, I could totally see why that would be. Very interesting. Yeah.
So for us to know this going in, I think is really important. A lot of what we do, with animals, it's like you are thinking, okay, well, this is simple, but it's not easy. But this is both simple and easy. So, score, we get something right away.
And do you find, like exactly what you said, it is simple and easy, but do you find as humans we overcomplicate things? Because animals like things simple and easy as well. And I don't know, I think also too, do you find with horses, I'll use horses as the example, that if they see that you're not in a good mood or they're a little bit uneasy, do you find that they then try to comfort you? Or do you find, like, how do you find they react in that situation in what you do, I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
No, I don't feel that they're necessarily trying to comfort you. I think that they more or less pick up on what it is that you are feeling, and then they internalize that. So, and as the experience goes on, that can change, but that's like the initial reaction is to internalize what it is that you're doing. And then as you go forward and maybe, the experience becomes better and so on and so forth, then it can change. But we're talking about setting it up from the very get-go to be a positive thing. They are very, animals are very in tune to even like the slightest movements that we make, our stance, how we are standing, they can tell whether or not we are like stiff and uptight or, more relaxed, just by our body language and how we move around them and so on and so forth. And I have found with horses, at least, that they're most likely to react to us as we are presenting to them. And here's another really interesting thing about that study. They also found, believe it or not, that this same exact reaction is possible through a photograph. In other words, if you take a picture of a human being with a smile on their face and you show it to the horse is going to react as if it was a real person. The same thing will happen if it is a scowl or a negative, a frown or whatever, and they're gonna do that. Well, they remember what that picture looked like. So when the researchers at the university presented the actual human being with a neutral expression on their face, the horse reacted to that person as if they looked the way they did in the photograph, which actually kind of blows my mind. But, I'm not going to argue with science. They did the experiments with hundreds and hundreds. I think they had something like 250 test horses in this experiment. And so in this study, so, they're pretty confident that they published this and that that it is in fact true. But this whole photograph thing just kind of really blew my mind that they would be that sensitive to, to the facial expression. And so, that gives us another insight into how sensitive they really are.
Absolutely. It's kind of like they're cold reading, like some people would do off a photo to read energy from the photo and stuff like that. I think that's amazing. And I know Courtney and I are always saying that horses and cats are very spiritual and very in tune animals. And it's good to have the science to back up what the animals have been telling us for a long time. And even my cows, I have heard that, cows never forget a face. They know if it's a person that's going to hurt them, if it's a kind person. I think they're just really, really intelligent animals. And I love that you're bringing through the science. That that Courtney and I have been we've spoken to each other's animals, and I've spoken to Courtney's horses, and I think it's wonderful. I mean, what else do you have to say? I'm like listening like this.
Well, right, and I think too, some people that could be like a little bit naysayers about, our communication with animals, and they're kind of like, oh yeah, right, et cetera, et cetera. It's nice to be able to back that up with science and say, okay, well now we can really prove that what it is that we are talking about is real. And if they're the kind of person that needs that kind of scientific proof, well, guess what? Now it's in the arsenal. So that's good to know. In addition to that, here's another interesting thing. There was another study done through the Alliant International University, and this study has to do with the heartbeat. And it's I think, again, we sort of on some level sort of feel like, oh yeah, well, we instinctively know that horses are picking up, especially when it comes to like riding in fear and so forth, that they're picking up on our bodily cues, that's happening within our bodies if we're nervous, and if you're nervous, to make them nervous and so forth. But again, to be able to actually scientifically prove that horses pick up on that is pretty interesting. The study is called Horses and Human Energetics, the study of heart rate variability, pronounce it, Janet, HRV, between horses and humans. And what it shows is that when horses, they already had done previous studies on this, when horses are in a herd, they will mirror each other's heartbeat. In other words, if the heartbeat is like just, a normal heartbeat, they're grazing, they're doing this, they're interacting with each other, they'll basically have the same heart rate. But what we didn't know was that when the horse is with the human being, that exact same thing is going to happen. And you kind of think, well, why would that be? And when you give it a little more consideration, you realize that when you are with the animal, you are their herd, and you are like the herd leader, hopefully, and that they are going to pick up on the cue of what your heartbeat is, and they're going to mirror that. So if you are with your horse and you're scared and your heart is pounding, you are going to give them the signal that there's something to be afraid of, and they'll pick that up and they'll say, okay, if you're afraid, then I'm afraid, so it's so important to be able to control that. And so you say to yourself, well, how do I do that? How do I control that? And what you need to know is what we do is we circle back to the first tenet. And as I mentioned, the mindset reset part, the mental part of what we're doing is so very, very crucial. The brain is divided into two sections, the conscious brain and the subconscious brain. And the conscious brain is what we're doing right now. We're talking to each other. We're, thinking, we're listening, we're thinking about what we're going to say. We're cognizant of certain things around us. It's a pretty calm environment, and so forth. What are we hearing? What are we, what are we seeing? But you can only hold so much in the conscious mind at one time. And so you need to go on to the next thing. So what happens to this thing? It gets pushed down into the subconscious. Okay. And that's where it lives. And I compare it to like a giant filing cabinet where everything that's ever happened to you, everything you've ever experienced is filed away in that filing cabinet. And what you have to understand is that if you get a trigger, for instance, something that triggers you in your conscious mind to fear as one emotion, since we're kind of talking about that, since that's my area of expertise, it does come up then into the conscious mind, okay? And that is where you start getting into trouble because you're beginning to visualize bad things happening, et cetera, et cetera. And then it goes back down into the subconscious mind. And what does the subconscious do with that? Well, all of us have, and including horses have this too. This is so interesting. Horses have this too. We all have a vagus nerve, okay? And the vagus nerve is what attaches the subconscious to the body, to the physical body. So as I mentioned before, the subconscious is in charge of, our physiology, our heart rate, our breathing, our heart rate, our blood pressure, and so on and so forth. Also, when we're talking about the fear factor, the vagus nerve will send down a message that will cause not only maybe the heartbeat to go to start whacking out and the blood pressure to go up, but you know how it is when we're afraid, we start maybe shaking or sweating, or everybody has different reactions. But it's so fascinating because it doesn't even really have to be something that's happening to you that can cause this reaction. Think about like if you go to a scary movie. Okay, and you're sitting there watching, and the heroine she's dressed in a long white nightgown, and she's got a candle in a candle holder, and she's in this old creaky house, and there's noises everywhere, and she hears this noise, and she thinks, oh, it's in the basement. Maybe I better check it out. So she goes and she's creeping in her bare feet down the stairs with this candle, and you're going, no, don't do it, run, and you find yourself like, you've got goose flesh and everything else because you're scared. You're not the woman. You're not even in the house, but you're scared anyway because your subconscious is telling you this is something to be afraid of. And so we get that going on in our bodies. And so that's why. So if armed with this knowledge, we can then go into our experience with our horses, and we can go into and we can switch into the deliberate versus default thinking. And a wonderful trick that I learned from Mel Robbins. I don't know if you guys know who she is, our audience knows who she is or not, but she's this wonderful she's actually pretty famous. She's written a number of books, and she's done she had a television show, and she's done TED Talks and all sorts of things. But she is one who really works on helping people with this deliberate versus default thinking. And she has this this I guess saying that you can say to yourself, which is think this, not that. So the minute you start to get in your brain something like picturing, oh my gosh, it's an accident. Oh my gosh, something bad's going to happen. And that would elicit negative feelings in you. You can stop yourself and you can say, think this, not that. And what is the this? The this is an anchor thought. And an anchor thought is something that we need to establish in advance. Okay. And everybody can do this. Anchor thoughts can be different things in different circumstances, because what I'm talking about works in all aspects of life, not just around animals and not just around horses and not just around animals. It works in all parts of our lives. And so it's important for us to establish within ourselves these anchor thoughts. What is an anchor thought? Well, if we're talking about the world of horses, you can think about a really pleasant experience that you've had with your horse. Maybe you've had a great trail ride, or maybe you won a ribbon in a show, or whatever it is. But what you want to do is conjure up that picture in your mind of that moment that was a happy, positive moment, and then try to bring around it all the experiences. Was the sun on your face? Did you smell hay? Whatever it is, to try to get the whole experience going there and sort of lock that experience in. And that'll be like on the top layer of your subconscious, then ready for you to go to when you need to go to your anchor thought as a deliberate thought. And you can do this with other things too, like, in different situations, you're going to maybe want to think about, a really wonderful day at the beach that you've had, walking along and listening to the ocean waves and so on and so forth. And arm yourself. I mean, that's your arsenal there of wonderful and good thoughts that you can replace when you start going down that rabbit hole of bad thoughts. You can stop yourself. You can go to the good thoughts. You can put that in. And therefore, you're giving your signal to your body, calm heart rate, easy peasy blood pressure, you're not rising that through, just a really calm and a serene approach. And that, again, when you go in and when you're with your animals, is going to give them the signal that all is well, that you're going to have a good experience. And I know, Courtney, you might even want to talk a little bit too about a very wonderful tip that you've given all of us about talking to the animal about what's going to happen, in this particular experience that you're about to do.
Yeah, definitely. That's it's a great tip. So if anything is involving your animal, anyway, big, small, whatever, always let them know what's happening, why it's happening, and the behavior that you want them to do. Basically, you just don't want to have any surprises. You want everyone to be on the same page. And you're telling them how you expect them to act. You're putting the positive thoughts in your mind, in their mind. You never want to use negative language. So if you told them what's happening and why it's happening, you wouldn't want to say, well, I don't want you to do this, or something like that, because now you're putting negativity in their mind rather than staying on the positive.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. And also too, I find that, not everyone wants to hear this, but a lot of the times when animals are picking up on your anxiety or your fear, they don't actually realize that you're projecting it onto them. Not always, but sometimes you're projecting it onto them. I mean, I've never really seen a wild bird sitting on a tree having an anxiety attack rocking, because they don't really get that. Like it's in their nature to be calm and happy. Obviously they're on high alert if they're a wild animal, but we do project our thoughts and our fears onto our animals, and then you can be stuck in this big loop, and then they project it back to you and you're projecting it to them, and then it's really difficult to get out of that pattern. So yeah, I love all this. I'm just listening. I'm just like, oh, it's so great. And we're all on the same page about, this is good tips for what we could do, for any animal. Like if I have a client and you have to change I always say you have to change your thinking to change the situation. And our mind is a powerful tool that we can use for animals, for our everyday life. So, wow, this is I'm really interested. I love what you have to say, Janet.
Well, thank you.
And when you're, explaining all this, I was thinking of how many clients I have who have dogs. And when they take their dogs out for a walk, the dogs, maybe they had a bad experience, maybe they were attacked by another dog, so now their dog is on the defense and their dog wants to attack other dogs. So these people have a lot of anxiety, which I totally understand. I mean, that's not a situation you'd ever want to be in, but just like Nicole said, some people project it onto their dog. I'm not going to say this for everyone, of course. Everyone has a different case. Everyone's an individual, but I feel that some of my clients, and probably people in general, they don't really have a dog problem. It's not their dog's problem. It's something that they themselves have to overcome and calm down, and just have the confidence that, no, my dogs, we're going to be fine. We're going to encounter other dogs on our walk and he'll be fine and we're just gonna walk past. So a lot of it's a person problem, a people problem rather than the animal problem. Would you guys agree?
Oh, I agree. And
Absolutely.
I actually used to be one of those people. I had to change my mind for certain situations. So yeah, I actually can relate to the people and the situation and changing your mind. And I love how you explain how on your anchor thoughts, how to get your anchor thoughts. And it's good learning the how, not just the what. Because I think a lot of times, you could be told something, but how do we do it? It's really
Mhm.
important to understand and learn. So yeah, I love that.
Yeah. It's kind of one of those, that's easy for you to say, but and Nicole, I mean, being totally honest, that these are all things that, I've learned going on through the processes and of life and learning all of these things. And some of them are things that have just been discovered. I mean, I think this whole thing, the whole facial expression thing was a study that was done in 2018. So this is fairly new information. And so we have to also be aware that, that these studies, that these things are going on and that we are learning more about animals in general as we go forward. They're all the old kind of what you'd maybe call old wives' tales or something like that, like the good sense stuff, that everybody should know or does know or whatever, but they don't. And so on. But it's kind of cool to know that, a lot of that does have a lot of faith. I mean, a lot of truth in it. It's not all BS, but we just don't know exactly how it is. And then we don't know what to really do with the information once we have it. And that's really the most important thing here for, all of us to communicate to our audiences is that, there is something, this isn't just, oh, well, it's nice to have that information, but it's like, well, what do we do with that information in order to improve the experience that we have with our animals and that our animals have with us?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I love it. I think we will try and keep this to, as Courtney and I call it, housework time. Like and long enough to do the housework, not too long to to drag on. But I think, I just want to thank you because I think you're amazing, and I think the information you've brought through is just wonderful, and I think it's going to help so many people out there. And yeah, I've just been in awe in everything that you've been saying, and I've been on mute, but every time you've been saying something in my mind, I'm going, yes, yeah. And like,
Yes.
that's what I say, but she says it so well.
Well, and having you guys, animal communicators as part of the process that I help others with, it's my mission to help other people, get happy with their horses again and enjoy their equestrian life and so forth. Having the animal communications part is such a very, very valuable part, just from everything that we just talked about. And it helps not only strengthen the relationship and increase the trust that the person has with the animal, but again, like I said, sometimes it's absolutely necessary to restore that as well. So, having the animal communicator as part of our team is really, Courtney's been really great and wonderful to meet you too, Nicole. And you guys, what you guys do is just amazing and so helpful to everyone. Thank you.
Well, thank you, because you're helping a lot of people too. How if somebody wants to get a hold of you, Janet, so you could be their confidence riding coach, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, you can go to my website, which is www.equestrianconfidencecoach.com. And I actually like to work. This is a program, and it's part online, but it's also part one-on-one because I do like to coach clients one-on-one. Everybody's an individual and has an individual problem, so that's how we address things in this program. And once you go to the website, you'll see how you can get in touch with me, schedule a phone call, and we have a free phone call. The initial call, and we can just talk about what your situation is and decide whether or not this program is right for you or not. And so you can do that. But while I have a minute yet before our show is over, I also wanted to mention that I'm also a writer and that I have an equestrian lifestyle blog called The Barn Goddess Chronicles. And Courtney's actually been a guest on The Barn Goddess Chronicles. And what that is all about is, it's a blog, www.thebarngoddesschronicles.com. And it is an equestrian lifestyle blog, and we cover all kinds of topics. It's really about entertainment and education. And so we cover, travel and health and fitness and fashion and just all kinds of different topics, but it all has to do with enjoying equestrian life. So if you want to hop on there one of these days and just see, some of the fun things that we are doing, we'd love to have you.
Beautiful. I love that. And all the information should be down below. I think you can see me there. I should have all the links down below. So if you want to get in contact with any of us, please feel free. And again, thank you, Janet, so much for being on our show and talking to us and sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. It's going to help a lot of people. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, Thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to more episodes of your show because I find it to be fascinating and, again, entertaining and informational as well. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm going to sign off here. So thank you, everyone, for joining. We love having you watch our show, and see you all later. Bye.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye.